Welcome everyone to game 2 of the Shusaku Study Project. This is the second game we've finished, so we are week 4, 5, I've already lost track. It is a lot of games. It's a lot of fun to go through it. It's a lot of fun to just go through everybody's analyses and gather the information and try to put it together into something coherent. I'm really enjoying this, and I'm enjoying doing the work myself of going through the games with positional judgment, direction of play, and reading. So the game we're going to look at today is actually a shorter game, which means I also don't know how long this particular review is going to be. It is a game, it's still one of the early games. Shusaku is still known as Yasuda Eisai. He changes his name, he uses 5 names through his career for various reasons. So this is just still one of the early games. Shusaku here takes black. He's a 1-dan professional. He's 11 years old. And Imai Hanshichi is his opponent. He's a 3-dan professional, and he plays as white. So we get this 3-4 opening. White challenges the open area by saying you don't get to get this nice open continuation, though of course black could play here and kind of get the symmetrical perspective, right? People did change their names pretty commonly. And there's a lot of things where they change their name, like when they enter the Honimbo house, when they get accepted as heirs, or when they get stronger, like when they so it's a whole set of things. So black plays solid, and this remains kind of a pattern in this game. Black decides to play very, very solid, and white plays pretty fast. That's one of the things to consider. White decides to to challenge the Shimari as patiently as possible, we're going to say, but it is very fast because it's a cross opening. So you do still have to deal with the fact that this will be kind of possibly fighting oriented, and the fact that it's a 5/4 stone means that the player is open for complications and fighting. And of course, because it's over here on this side, it is not as bad or as much of a challenge as coming here, but it is something that is saying that this Shimari is going to be less useful. So you wish we could do that these days. It's not as easy to change your name, but it's still possible. Like there's just, more, what's the word? There's more paperwork involved because we track our names more. Black continues to play very solid. He is open to the idea that the bottom side is going to be interesting and useful and important. Also, I don't have my fan. Where's my fan? I did this and then I forgot to take it back. It's terrible. How will people make fun of me on Facebook if I don't use my fan? Right? So we're going with the bottom side being very important here. White decides to accept the idea. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, this early in the game and I made a mistake. I wasn't actually looking. Black chooses a 5/3 point here. And so black is suggesting that he's going to favor this side. So actually, technically, what he's actually saying is he's going to favor the bottom side as well, right? Because there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 intersections here. So the bottom is now agreed upon to be a big area to focus on. And with the 5/3, he challenges this the way the 5/4 challenged the Shimari. So it's going to be hard for white to make the most effective development on this side. So white naturally plays on the biggest, most contested side, which makes perfect sense. And black says, I am very happy to take profit while you try to get the influence. Right? He could Tenuki from here, but he's not interested in doing so. Especially because this result is generally pretty good for black. this is one of the things that I got from the Dosaku games, seeing this pattern happen. A number of times Dosaku opened with the 5-3. He enjoyed doing that, I think, to make more complexities, just to make the game more interesting for himself. And when the opponent approached this way and they went through this pattern, this result was invariably inferior for the opponent. And often the result ends up in the older days, as finished, the continuation was something like this, and then some version of this. This is what you would see back in ye olden days. So in this case, white plays faster. So we're not gonna get this next move. One thing I can tell you that I think is interesting is my one memory of the one time Dosaku actually played this approach to the 5-3, and he went down and he descended and he played this third move. He spent the next 60 or 70 moves creating a sacrifice position to sacrifice these stones. That is how much he thought this was an inferior position. He just didn't want to use that. So in this case, white plays quickly, right? And jumps out this way. Lies. Hello, Faithy, how are you? So at this point, this corner is effectively settled. It's not completely finished. If white descends, then black... sorry, like this is right here. My fan is far away, but over here, if white descends, black will need to reinforce, and then there's a possible trade sequence happening, where white can take the corner and black can take a bunch of strength in this direction. But this is probably not what's going to happen here, just because it's not super interesting to go towards this side. Well, it's not very interesting to give white this unilaterally, is what I mean, because the trade is not very valuable. This side is absolutely the next place to develop. It's the biggest open area. Best go eat. Yeah, go eat. So black does play here directly. And you'll notice black is playing low, playing on the third line. And this is still standard because white has done so, except for these two stones. So to be fair, half the stones pretty much are on the fourth line. But white is playing more quickly. So now we have two corners left to finish, right? We have this corner that we have to solve because it's contested, and this corner because it's only got one stone. And this is actually the kind of as far away as you can play while still technically playing in a corner. So black plays here patiently. So white is going to continue with the plan of working with complications, and is going to give us a two-space pincer. Now, if you look at the number of points on the board and you count, you have this and this versus pretty much that, right? So all these points against these points, like black has like 25 points, white has like 4 points. Of course, there's all the development potential. So we're not counting the development potential when we say this, but in pure cash, black is up. So white is going to is setting up for a game where white is setting up for a game where he's going to have to convert all of this into points over time, right? And so that's what he's what he's doing with this move is creating a game position where he's going to be able to create complications and hopefully settle points from these complications. And one of the things that's is consistent with this idea is that if white say, if white just plays this and black gets to settle, right? Then this is just, it gets harder and harder and harder for white to convert further complications into points, because black can just continue settling his points, so there's no trading happening. Shusaku should 3-3 in the lower right. I mean, you should always 3-3, right? If there's one thing we've learned from misunderstanding the AI, we should always 3-3. In this case, he does 3-3, but in the top left, right? And again, there is this pattern that is continual and just never ever stops, where, look, points, points, points. Right? It is always, with this move, black says it is always on white to prove that he can do something with his stones. Now, white is going to challenge the corner and get a base for his stones, or create the potential for a base at the very least. The black stones are fairly stable. They can make 2 eyes, they can run out. Right? And so now, now that you're here, white has to decide what to do with c12. Now, of course, we have to finish these stones, because it would be terrible to let these stones die and be captured. But white is in this position where black is building up strength that's going to impact this stone very, very fast. And it's unpleasant to just create a base here, because you're being sandwiched between two strong groups. Oh no, white has 2 weak groups. Well, white has 2 weak groups, and then this is actually not settled, it's just not weak yet. Because while this is settled, it has this area to go in and this area to go in. So this group it doesn't count as a weak group yet, but it's not a happy group either, I think. And one of the important things, and when you're looking at this, is now black is going to be able to withstand fights very steadily, because black is going to be able to run to this group, or to this group, or to this group, right? Now, one of the things that are happening from this here, 2 weak groups in one melancholy group. Yeah, pretty much. This group is new go term, a melancholy group. I like it. So white has to protect this group, because this is just the biggest, weakest thing on the board, and it would create an unbalanced amount of strength for black if this goes away. And at this point we're in the opening, and we already have something to challenge, which is, if the next exchange, particularly the exchange around the bottom right corner, doesn't end in sente for white, then black is going to be able to really expand on this corner, and that's going to make it more and more difficult for white to come back from the point deficit. Now, at this point, having this and this, approaching this is going to be much easier, because now pretty much every result is going to be acceptable, whether it's a trade and white goes into the corner, or white goes out here to connect these stones and we get points. Everything's okay. So we continue, right? This move manages complications. Black plays steady in a way that he can turn over here to make a second eye, and he can attach, he can get out. He's able to, weirdly, these 4 stones, well, I don't know about weirdly, but these 4 stones are fairly flexible, because these 2 groups are kind of weak. So black has options to lean and build strength either way. So white, we're going to say settle. It is essentially settling the group, because it has a way out this way, a way out this way, and it can make an eye over here. And it is also setting up this possibility of, now trying to seal in this group, or squeezing it, whichever direction you end up squeezing from. So this is where we are. It's fairly stable, fairly steady. And now we have the last corner, and black opens the exchange in this corner. This is the least simple place on the board to create a stable, settled position. So black steps in to continue his strategy, just at a simple 3-4 point, to just ask if he can make points somewhere. He can make points that way, he can make points that way, he could even make points in a smaller area here, and he would be okay with it. And the reason why he would be okay with it is because, again, points, not many points, kind of points, and that's it. So it's hard for white to settle gently here. And so white is going to continue and hope, I don't know, hope for the best. It's very mean to say that of an opponent who is a 3-dan professional. But essentially he is continuing his strategy, and that is commendable. He's building a strategy and working with it. So black gets to continue his pattern and say, okay, well, if you're going to continue playing on the outside, I'm going to continue playing on the inside. White works to seal in black, which makes sense. And then we connect here. Now, at this point, white announces that we're going to contest the right side, because we have 2 stones here versus 2 stones here, and we have to figure out who's going to settle here. And of course, all of black's groups are settled. And for the record, black almost has all 4 corners, right? If white plays here, we can say white gets the corner, but if black plays here, black has all 4 corners. That's center game, though. That is the thing you look at, right? Like, white is trying to focus on the center game, and you know this because this is horribly undercut. So white can't actually count on this ever being points. And so white is really banking on this being where the game's going to get decided. One of the important things to consider here is that black's moves over here are never going to be sente because white is very thick. So black has to choose a different path, a different action. And one of the simplest ways to do this is to, you know, lean on something. And the way we're going to lean is this way. Because this is the weakest part of the shape between these 2 stones. And the fact that it's a knight's move, there's something to work with. So again, black is still choosing profit and yielding influence. And I don't know about you, but this is a very nice corner. I am liking this corner quite a lot. Let's count the points maybe. 2, 5, 8, 11, 13, 15. Yeah. It's a nice 15-point corner. It's pretty respectable. And there's a cutting point here that's looking kind of nice. Now, white is going to expand on the right side because now this is the last big contested area. There's this here, but it's hard to do something. It's hard for white to do something here because the 2 groups are strong. Whatever white does, black will be able to lean on it instantly. And it's hard for that to happen without the exchange giving black strength towards the center, which is all this effort that black has been putting that white has been putting into that not happening. Now, if you count the points, at this point black has about 41 points and white has about 15. So it's tricky. But the thing is, so this move asks for S16. This move wants to play S16 later on. And I'm going to show you the variation for that. So if black doesn't reinforce this area, so it's important to note here the subtlety. This move is gote because it doesn't threaten something directly for black. There are big things to do on the board. But later on, white can play here. And black wants to protect. And when you do this, you end up you have to make a table shape here to get your position to be somewhat stable. White gets to push once this way, and then black can reinforce. And so this is the position you end up in, and this is a very nice position for white to have on this side of the board, right? So this is what white could have happened if there's no reinforcement. But if white does reinforce, which is, you know, here, when you get this, then black can just extend here. So now white doesn't have the way out here. So white can try to go over here in the corner, but black can play the shape point. And at this point, white can try to connect this way, but black encloses, and white locally is dead at this point after black plays the shape point. So this reinforcement removes this follow-up. Cool, makes sense? That's not the right stone to remove. And so this is too far from this to be a base, right? You can step right in here and be fine, but it does aim this far away, which I think is honestly very cool. I can't help it. I think it's very cool. So again, this is Gote, right? And black doesn't have a reason to play in this area just yet. Eventually, he wants to reinforce to remove this when it's big enough to do so. So instead, black is going to continue his pattern, and this is where these are the things where like I need to get better at doing this in my games. Black reinforces the corner. This makes the corner just alive. End of story. And what that means is that now any work that white puts into sealing this corner is just a very slow move because it's not sente at all. But that also means something else, crucially. It means that now white can attack this stone with complete impunity. There's never going to be a threat that's going to make any sense. And now you have two strong groups that are just ready to squeeze the life out of this. So you have to look at what white wants to do here. Now this is one of those interesting things where white's next move is a mistake. If you ask the AI, it's actually a fairly significant mistake, like 4 points approximately. Because up until now the game was fairly even, assuming of course you take into account komi. Because what I mean is black has been up 7 points or so at this point in the game. So you know, with komi it would be fairly even. And the next move that white should play, and I'm not gonna go through the rest of the variations for this, but white should play here now. And this is a very Dosaku move. You should just go in here now, steal some strength from the Shimari to explore this area, and then when you come back to this side and probably do the same thing on this side. But instead, white says, I'm going to fix the last area that I have that's kind of questionable, and I'm going to make a base. That's fine. I mean, it's a 4-point mistake, so you know, fine. This at least can now easily move with some shape towards the center and can approach, and can, you know, this will now be a more steadier move. So there's that. But at this point on the game, black has like 42-ish points on the board, and white has like 22-ish points on the board. So again, white needs to convert to 20 points. So keep that in mind, that the potential is here, but it's going to disappear, right? So a lot of what black is going to do now is start squeezing slowly. Black turns. Black is going to challenge the idea that this move is here, and he takes a reverse sente move, because like we were saying before, if white descends, black has to defend the corner again, right? So it's sente for white to play there. And somewhat crucially for the local area, there's a challenge to white's original idea for development, because white decided to treat these two stones lightly when he extended this way and then continued playing. So we need to figure out what white is going to do with these stones. Now, when white is trying to play, white has to consider these two stones, and what's the word? So he has to consider these two and then play in a way that creates a consistent framework. Hang on a second. Did I say something wrong because the settings aren't what I'm used to? I may have to go back a second and undo something. Computer go. No, I don't want this. This is, I do want this. Oh, I think I need to install a newer version. So I need to go back. This wasn't a 5-point mistake. It's important to note that. I'm sorry. This was it was a percentage loss. Stretch. Thanks. Oh. Actually a good call. Yeah, give me 1 second to try this again. Yes, so I need to amend what I said earlier, and I'm sorry about that. This is it's a 1% difference. It's not a 4-point mistake. That's entirely my bad. I have an older version of the tool on this local machine on this laptop, and the tool I'm using normally gives me points. So I need to update this one so that I can tell you points, because that's more meaningful. But so this is fine. It's not quite as aggressive, not quite as changeable as playing here, but it's okay. And lower depth. Thank you for the follow. So anyway, white plays this move, and it's a very solid move, and it's kind of weird to think about, but it does, you know, again, it sort of agrees this is never going to be points, right? It makes these stones useful, and this is one of those things where white needs to do that, because this is one of the few high stones that white has. You know, it has this stone, and those stones, right? And that's it. So this is sort of the base for going towards the center in a couple of ways, right? For center control, we're going to use that word. And so it works. It feels weird and slow compared to everything else white has done, but this challenge does force white to consider this too, because he doesn't want to lose these stones. So black gets to play in the last big point, and we know that the Fuseki is over, but now we get to challenge this group, right? So he's extending the big area in Sente this way. Now, white is going to ask if he can do something better, because this group can at least run out or can settle, so white is balancing the weakness. And instead is going to get closer to the Shimari and now activating this move, right? Just activating the invasion point. He also is going to prevent white from getting a double wing formation, right? So because this move here, it'd be very nice for black to have this. It would be just fantastic. So this move makes it harder for black to really develop everything. And so now the position, while it is many more points for black, feels somewhat even. Somewhat. And it's, you know, if you had komi, the position would be pretty even. As it is, black has maintained this, the initiative, the first move advantage. Now the normal move locally to respond here, to defend, would be this move. This makes it hard for this stone to invade and reduce this position. But black has a more dynamic approach in mind. Black plays here. And this move is going to remove the key way out and kind of the eye-shaped point for the white group. And he removes the weakness at, oh boy, at E15, which white could have played before, or D14 here, which is the things that I pointed out before, like where white could play here or here, which are the weaknesses for this Kusumi, right? The tiger's mouth shape. This is the shape point for the tiger's mouth, so it is the place. Did I skip a white move? Did I? I don't think so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not yet. I haven't skipped a white move. Does it look like I skipped a white move? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I lost track after K17. No, you didn't. What happened after K17 is I was saying that black... I was suggesting that black has this local response, this local defense. But black is going to play more actively than just defending. No, it's okay. Look, it's a fair thing. I do make that mistake sometimes. It's very hard to keep track. At some point, I'll be as good as bats, and then I will not make that mistake. But what happens is instead of defending, black plays actively here, and he removes these points. Right? And one of the things that's happening directionally as well is the pressure on this group is building strength to attack this group. So white reinforces, and now black plays very patiently and closes off the R17 invasion. And he removes the use that this stone can have towards the corner. And sorry, towards the center. This stone is not super useful towards the center anymore. So now there's two areas of unresolved pressure on the black position, which is this single stone, like white could still play here, and C5, right? And this is another one of those things where as much as the AI recommended attaching, the AI would like to attach. But attaching is a thing that sort of fell out of favor, it seems, after Dosaku's time. I think it might be because people figured he was just so strong he was able to get away with it, instead of it just being the better move, which, to be fair, is not inconsistent, because these are much more complicated variations, generally, so you do have to be better to get away with it. Now, where we are on this board is, again, that white has to begin to really convert all of this into points. So white is going to defend, fix the shape point, create this... attaching is scary. The way to fix it is to attach a whole bunch, like make a new account, attach a whole bunch, lose a whole bunch of games, and then kind of get used to the movement of the stones and the flow of the stones. That's why monks let go of their attachments. Get out. Get out. So, the next move is genius. Well, I don't know if it's more genius than the rest of this, but this next move is one that I would not necessarily have dared to even find. But there's a shape point in white's shape that we want to poke at, and black pokes at it. I'm gonna leave you. I'm gonna let you digest this move for a second. Because this move is challenging the entire strategy that white has employed so far. We're at move 39, and if this stone is right, if this stone is successful, then it might be difficult for white to really make up the points. So this is, white, this is the beginning of the... You may suggest that you're asking for 50 points, you might get 25, right? Cue white tilting. But white doesn't tilt. White does a very good job with it because, of course, white has to be aware that this is a stone on this board. As much as for many of us, be like, excuse me, what just happened? But white has to manage this anyway. Ooh, Fire Scourge is here. Good morning, Fire Scourge. So white is going to defend the most egregious cutting point first, temporarily. Make sure that this is going to be less of a problem. And poking at some weaknesses that, you know, with the wedge and the cuts that may have to be taken into account. Black says, okay, my points. I'll just keep this corner, thank you. And when you look at what's happening now, if you look on the board, the forcing moves available for black in this area are going to be going through the elephant move. White can defend, but white has to defend. And then just attaching on top. So white is going to work with both of those by just attaching, making a more solid shape, and making it harder for the stone to connect back out by creating a wider bridge. Like, you have to keep black separated. And here you're leaning on the strong group to attack the weak group, right? And this is beginning to aim at K17. Sorry, to attack at the K17 weakness to set up this invasion. Believe it or not, when I'm looking at this board, I don't see coordinates. So I have to, I do a transfer very fast on the fly as I go from my comments on the SGF to the real board. Sorry, my comments, the Shusaku Study Project's comments. So black responds very normally when you get this bump, you just extend. And it's a very simple pattern where you say, if I make fifth line territory, is that good enough? Can I still do this? Now at this point, white can no longer come in here, but white can still play the attachment on the inside. Now, here's the thing to consider. Again, we're at move 43, and I'm talking a lot for these early things, but this is such an interesting setup where both people had their set strategies that you were to talk about the consequences of all these choices. Should add the I coordinate between HA and J to make it more confusing. No, we're not gonna do that. Black has exactly one thing on this board that's weak, that has to be managed. And that's this stone. And here's the thing about this stone, it's easy to sacrifice. So black can manage this however black wants. White has many more weak things to manage. There's the cutting point, there's these stones, there's these two stones, there's this group here, which is, you know, probably going to live, but has to balance out because any forcing moves that black has here might be, in an unbalanced way, much stronger, or much better for black than for white. European Go coordinates don't include I. That's correct, they don't, Pickaway. And do you know why they don't? Because it's very confusing to look at I and J. How can I count in letters? The reason I don't like number is because I never know whether to start in this direction or in this direction. That's it. So, white jumps. We're continuing to split. And we are re-enabling M17. Still possible. And we're preparing to swallow this stone like a sandworm on Arrakis. Is the bar an I or an L? Yeah, I don't know it, Ego. I have no idea. Who the heck knows? So black jumps very simply, very patiently. This is another one of those moves I would have a very, very hard time finding because I would be in such a rush to do something faster and just go and fight and do something. But this move aims at this cut. And it's very patient and it's a shape-making move, right? From here, you can make the dog face. You can make the bamboo joint. You can set up for the J shape. etc., etc., right? Like this one space jump is the basis, is one of the grounds for so many shapes. So white is going to begin to poke back around. He's aiming at the cut. He's not directly going to it, but because he's trying to ask if black wants to defend, right? He's saying, can I turn around this way, get this group, get some more strength on this side? Arabic and Japanese numerals, I think they do Fire Scourge, yeah. I know bamboo and table. Shapes are important. There is, you know, I don't understand how I don't have this marked yet, but give me 1 second. There is the highly recommended best lecture that we have for this generally out in public is this one. This is dson's shape lecture. It's a long video, which you can watch it in a couple of sections. So I realized this is gonna be out on YouTube at some point. So this is how you're gonna look for that. dson's shape lecture. So here, white is counter-attacking, and at this point in the game, we're at move 46, and it's been this way for a little while, but now this is really an all-or-nothing game for white. Because white is really saying that he's going to try to connect all of this, and there's so much space here to just live, right? So white is really saying, I'm going to make all these points, or a very significant amount of these points. Now, black can try to cut here, but it's not gonna work out super well. Do I not have any of these comments? Did I not write anything down? Oh yeah, never mind. So, the black's next move here is to respond very simply, and he is going to extend up. So what he's doing with this is he's keeping this group separate from this group. Very important first thing. And he is activating the cuts. Wait, hold on. Sorry, I apologize. This move is absolutely here. I don't know why I removed it. It's very important. We get this. What I'm about to say makes more sense when this stone is on the board. And it activates this cut much more directly. It makes the cuts much more painful for white. As is, this move is the AI recommended move, so not only is it simpler, it's also better. Black could push and cut, but there's not really a very good reason for white to deal with it. Like, if one of the things is, if white blocks here, then persisting is not good. This move is this cut is a 3-point mistake, because what you end up with is this kind of position, and white here is going to use the exchange, because the focus isn't really on this stone or even this stone. The focus is on the areas that are challenged, right? So black continues challenging. White connects here. Black continues to extend, and then white steps here. Now this is slightly unpleasant, because now white has 2 weak groups. Black has 2 weak groups to manage in white's strong area. And this, of course, is a much nicer result if mostly sealed in for black. For white. No, yes. For white has pretty much as much better points here, right? So this cut is not an ideal result. Okay. So black chooses the simplest move. There's sorry. And so white is going to aim to defend simply as well, with a dog face. If you were asking, Pekwe, this shape here is the dog face. If you were curious, there's a couple of these shapes. If you extend here this way, this is the horse face. And over here, apparently, it's the giraffe. because, yeah, yep. So there it is. There's 3 shapes for you. Now, this is a forcing move because white gets to play and continue here this way, but black does respond this way. And the thing is, both players are aiming at the same point over here. And the point, very importantly, is the point that white plays next. And it's this point. Because if black gets to play this after playing this move, this group is sealed in. And that's a big problem. Because all of a sudden, this doesn't look like a white area. It looks like an area where there's two really sad white stones. They're no longer melancholy. Now it's full-on depression. And now this fight is not even the big thing on the board. Like, it's just a thing it's just another thing white has to manage. So white really cannot let this happen. So white splits this way. Now black suggests that he's going to connect. This shape doesn't really connect, right? Because it's 2 nice moves. So you can cut it, but cutting it leads to a weak group to a weak cutting group. And that is the beginning of the plan. Right? We get here. We get here. Here, connects. And you have to do something here because otherwise it's terrible. So this exchange is pretty good because this move is actually is pretty forcing. And the reason it's forcing is because this group now has one way out, just the one. For a while it was okay. But now this is a weak group. And black connects underneath. So now black only has one group to worry about. This group. So keep that in mind when you look at this pattern. This game is such a fantastic example of this. If you settle all your groups, fighting is easier because you don't have to worry about 8 things. You only have the one thing to worry about. So white is now going to continue the attack on this group because this group can't live, right? So white continues the attack. Black jumps. And give me 1 second. So one thing to look at from a perspective of so the cut here is active and is sort of activated for a bunch of the game and has been for a while. But the way the AI looks at a move like this is very much about AGI management, and it's hard to say that we would use it for direct benefits. Most of the time you would cut this way and do something else. But at this point, this cut is pretty good. Learning to settle quickly gained you 2 stones? Probably. I am willing to believe that. It is one thing that I'm still not very good at doing because I still want to fight more and more and more. My next... I think maybe as I go through Shusaku's games I might just get that knowledge. But the thing I want to see, that I started to pay attention to in Dosaku's games, was how he would settle absolutely when necessary. And that's his kind of this judgment of the board position. So this cut here is activated in the sense that it's hard now for this cut to lead to a good result. Even if I just put the stone here on the board. With this crazy long relationship between the 2 stones, we still have this position where this group is split from this group. And whatever we do, whatever direction black-white goes in, you're going to weaken something else. Now the kind of the most reasonable. It's hard to actually talk about the most reasonable thing, because if black gets to Atari on this side, then this is going to be much stronger. And if you reinforce over here, you're going to weaken these stones, which might be a problem. So this is now it's getting to be a bigger threat on the board. But we have a pressing topic of conversation, which is this group going to die? So white says, can I cut this off? And also, can I cut this off? Because now the sequences to cut are available here. So we keep the connection alive aggressively. We limit directions for this group. And we expand the open directions for this area, right? Because now we can go this way, right? Like we have all of these paths open. So it's getting stronger. White re-enables the cuts. And then we're going to push. Turn. And cut again. And so now you see how black, has enough liberties to start fighting back in white's area of strength. Now clearly white cannot do anything that resembles giving black an easy eye, especially because there's an area here that pretty much gives black an eye at some point. And we're gonna get into that one, the variations for this a bit later, when they really look like when you see the value. But keep that in mind now. I should probably actually make a note to move those variations earlier in the SGF, because it's important to note that there's already an eye here, so that when you can understand this fight, you realize that black only has to make one eye here. So when you extend here, there's a loose net that black can make here, which would make the second eye. So white has to protect against that aggressively, limiting the directions, because you can't sacrifice those stones. And so black asks if he can make a second eye, limiting the directions and opening himself up to further paths out this way. Now that these stones are out, black is forced to go back and connect, because now this is just strong enough in the Liberty race that it would be a problem. And the 9 is annoying. This stone? Yeah, a little bit. It's a little annoying, and so black fixes. And now you have more battles to consider, but again, there is a loose net, right? So white has to protect here first. So white protects as actively as he can, saying that if you want to capture, now there's a Liberty race you have to manage, a ladder that you can come back around. And black says, you know what would be very nice? If I had 9 liberties. It was a creative way for black to defend against it. Yeah, I like this shape, this pattern a lot. That was fun. So this group is now very safe, in the sense that it's going to be very hard to surround effectively. It's got a way out here, a way out here. It's got these 2 stones that it could kind of surround. There's a lot of ideas here. So it's also worth noting this group here doesn't actually really have 2 eyes yet. So white is going to slide here, which is going to challenge, the base for this entire black group, right? This is where the eyes are. Don't need eyes when you have 100 liberties. That's true. You only need the eyes eventually. So black defends actively. White descends. And black comes back. Now, white here has a choice. White wants to peep here, and this is a natural exchange, right? And this is what happens next in the game. However, it's actually better a little bit better, not a ton better, but a little better, to come here first, connect these stones out, and crucially remove a big chunk of direction from this big group. And you get guaranteed profit, right? So this move here would be just a better move on this board. Because here's in what happens here, and we're going to start to see the position. At this point, black wants to step back out here. And there's an eye, right? Now, and at this point in the game, this is where white gets to come back around here and attach. And this is reasonable, right? If we ask the AI what the AI is thinking, the AI thinks that black is up about 10 points. So black has made 3 points since the beginning of the game. It's getting to be a difficult game for white because the area where points can be made is decreasing. So you're beginning to hope for black. You're beginning to try and push black into a mistake. But this would be a path, and here is one of the eyes, right? Very crucially. And then consider as well what you can do here if you are able to be connected back out, which it looks very much like you are, right? So this isn't the direction that we go in. Remove. Okay. So white peeps here. And so this ends up actually, you know what? I spoke slightly wrong. This is a lot better. I said a little better. This is a lot better. This is what I get for not being omniscient. This move is a 4-point mistake because this path is better. Right? This is actually what you should be doing. Because now black gets to ignore the peep and say, can I take these stones? So white is off here. Now here, what black, make a fist before striking. Right. Now here, what black should do, this is not what black does, but black should poke here first, because this forces a defensive move, and then black can come back and push here. But in the game, in the game, black pushes down here first. This is marked as a 3-point mistake. It's one of those things where, you know, black was up 9 points, now black is up 10. Q10 is like white's M18. You mean M18? Q10? Oh, like white getting this move. Yes, it's very similar. The difference is that if white got this move, then these stones would just be dead. And over here, the black stones aren't necessarily dead because they have an eye to connect back out, I think. But they can make an eye. They can't necessarily connect back out, but they can make an eye. Yes. White's version of an M18 type move. Yes, that makes sense. That's correct. That's, yeah. Yes. So I have questions. Yeah, I absolutely have to update the tool here. Here, white pushes. After the pushes once as a forcing move, and now comes back here. So he's asking, now he wants to come back and get profit. He's hoping, I think, to protect against moves that would connect too directly with too many forcing moves, these two groups. So making so it's one eye guaranteed, but not an eye and life. And then he comes back for profit. And when black turns, white can't let this happen and become another eye. Of course, this causes pressure on this group. So white has to turn. Black says okay. And now when white turns to come out, we are forced to come back and defend because now there's enough liberties for this to be annoying. So we connect. White needs to protect the weakest group at the very tip of the fight. And this is one thing that gets tricky. And now black gets to play this move. And now black is alive. Right? And this is alive because of the exchange you saw over here before. That gives you a move. And you get the turn at 09. Where's 09? Yeah, just here you get an eye. If you come back around, you can get an eye. Here you can get an eye. So it's... And there's some shenanigans here to make life annoying. And N4, we're very close to N4 as well. And so white just doesn't have enough points. So white has to fight and is going to say, okay, well, if you live, maybe I need to close this area and accept things. Now, white can't connect here. This would still be one eye, right? You can just capture here. But you can't even save this stone. Because if you do, right, so let's show this just variation one more time. We had this earlier in the game, but one more time for good measure because it's not super clear necessarily. You have this threat to come through here and push and cut. Because if you can push and cut, then you can capture these stones. And so you get to play here. And if white decides to take this stone, you get to play here. And if you were to save these stones, then black can just play here. So now, these stones are cut off and they're never going to be strong enough to do something about it, right? And these stones are going to be connected to this, which is a dragon that has too many liberties. So that is why you can't connect at N8 and hope to do something meaningful, because you just don't have the liberties. So it's not useful. It's not a useful move to do that. So white instead says, okay, we're alive, fine. I need to try and make points now. So black says, I'm going to simplify this board position. And white says, I have to make more points somewhere. Please, somebody. Black goes, all right, you know what? We're closing this off. It's good. It's fine. White takes this point, which is pretty big from an endgame perspective. Now at this point, you know, the black has about 43 points. White has about 33 points, because if you look at the board position, if we count the black areas, this is going to be about 5 points. This is about 12 points at 17. This is about 11 points, so 28. And this is about 15 points, so 43. From a white perspective, this is going to be about 4 points, because you have this cut here. You have to assume the endgame goes to the other player when you count generally. So you get 4 points here, you get 11 points here, that's 15. You get about 5 points here, that's 19 points. About 5 points here, maybe 24. And then you get maybe 10 points here, and that's 34 maybe. So about 10 points, right? And you have to look at where the points are. How is white gonna make up those 10 points? Like, white's been behind 10 points now for a while. And black gets this move. This is a big move. It's a double sente move, obviously. Obviously it's a double sente move, and it's a very nice move to get before playing somewhere else, because you get to play this, white gets to defend, and then black gets to say, hey, you know those points here, can I connect this group over here? And then you have to worry about both sides and you lose more points. So white plays here because it's kind of the same type of question. Can I reduce this area here? Can I make more points? And black says, I would like this to not be points. Is that okay? And unfortunately for white, it's not okay. Like, you need to defend this area to make some points, otherwise you just lose a lot of things. You have to remember this cut is here. So you kind of have to assume that somewhere something might die if you're not very careful. So here, with this clamp, we're forced to defend. Black connects back up. White has to turn, because this is how you close out the territory, right? That's where we are in this game. And you can't afford to let black cut you off here. That would be very terrible. So sorry. Oh, is there one more coming? Oh, man, I'm sorry. I have no idea how loud that was. It's so much easier to sneeze when there's not a microphone in your face. Thank you. So black gets to close the area, and we have our first capture of the game at move 123. We have to connect here, and black continues to very patiently undercut this area completely. He's not even going to take the cut. He's going to say, you know what? I just want more points. I wish my games went like that. Oh, it's... Well, I mean, look, to be fair, if we look at the board position now, and you look at the number of... the point difference, like, black is up 11 points right now, and black is up 11 points because there's no komi. So, with komi, black would be up 5 points. You know, and so for a professional, this is a comfortable lead, but for us amateurs, this is still a hard-fought game. You know, like we make it sound easy. This was always going to live in some fashion, unless, well, let's say that again at the professional level, this was gonna live, right? Absolutely not a thing. And white is not making tremendous mistakes. Like, this is just kind of the consequences of the board position as they are, and they're kind of playing through it. Similarly here, black extends one more time, says, are you going to make points here? White says he would like to make a couple of points, and limits, you know, 1 or 2 points being made. And then, you know, because again, black is comfortable here, we push. Now here, white, you cannot connect here. And this is the important thing. So let's take a look at what happens. And again, you'll be very surprised to see that the next move for black is this one. Now, obviously, or again, if white plays here, black plays here, so that doesn't help, right? If white plays here, black still plays here. And then, of course, white can connect these stones out, but black takes these stones, right? So you can't connect against this push. And you have to note that all of this is now connected back out to these stones that are a little bit short on liberties, that are connected, that have this, you know, possible liberty shortage here to connect back out to this, right? So you have, white has to be a little careful in this endgame. So white has to protect his shape. When black is going to extend a little bit here, is going to poke at some questions, ask you what you can cut here. White plays over here. Why does white do that? Well, white wants to disconnect this, right? Imagine what happens if black passes or plays somewhere else. You've been waiting for O12 for this move? Yep, this move. Well, it's not gonna happen now. I think. I can't remember. But if after this move, white can play here to disconnect. And if black plays over here, white will play here. N12. Oh, you've been waiting for this move. Okay, yeah. Right, okay. Yeah. Reading coordinates is hard. Yes, it is. It's very difficult. My whole effort, I just realized I don't even have like A correctly here. I have it, my A's off. Anyway. I have still managed to talk about this game for like almost an hour and a half. So it's interesting. It's a big fight. Lots of things to talk about. So here, if you look here, then white clamps. And remember that the goal is, you know, to try and keep these stones connected, but it turns out you can't, right? So these stones are going to get cut off. That's what white wants to do, right? Because that would be a very, very big shift in points. So this first move for black wouldn't work. Again, we're assuming black passes, right? The other kind of option would be, if white plays here next, the other kind of option would be this one. But then white can play down here. And then, you know, black gets this, but you have to make a sad life, and then you get to extend further and poke at weaknesses. So, Alright, so we're here. Of course, black doesn't pass, and black maintains the connection. So now white gets to follow up on his earlier threat and play the monkey jump. Black blocks. White steps out. And black protects. Now the monkey jump is always my favorite move and has been forever and ever and ever. I just love seeing it played. At this point, according to the AI, black is still up 8 points, so it's been, you know, a very steady game. And there hasn't been a lot of like very big shifts. They've both played pretty well. There's been a couple of 3-4 point mistakes, but on both sides. So it hasn't been like it's not an overwhelming victory. It's just that black maintained his advantage from the first move. So white is going to ask one more question here, so black gets to stay connected. White gets to ask one more question, which is a very convenient way to stabilize this group. White gets to ask one more question about the endgame. And then white, I like this jump a lot. I think it's very cute. I'm a big fan of that little thing here. White defends up. Then black goes back and defends down. White comes up. And black comes up. So this move is the last move we have in the game record. It is not a resignation. The game record marks that black wins by 4 points. According to the AI, at this point, black is up 7. It's like 7.5. So you assume that either there were a few small mistakes made in the end game, or Shusaku sacrificed a few points to just get a simpler end game. But this is our game. I hope black must have awful endgame. I know, right? You know, I have been told black was a little kid. So how good could he possibly have been, right? All right, so I'm gonna thank you everyone for following this this game with me. I appreciate it. And well, we will see what the next game has in store on the next stream.